back to Kingdom Huddle. As you all can see, I am sitting here with this beautiful lady. I'm not at my usual location because, as I stated, with Kingdom Huddle, it's all about celebrating each other and highlighting individuals who are running the race, who understand the playbook, and they're in their lane. And the conversation that we're going to be talking about today is going to be a good one. It's called Misplaced Identity. Misplaced identity. So many of us, we allow other people to determine what our identity is. And a lot of us don't really know who we are. When we're asked the question, who are you? It's automatically the different positions and titles that we play, but we, at the core of who we are, we don't know who we are. Our identity has been misplaced in so many things. So this conversation with my guest is going to be so juicy, y'all. It's going to be so good. I would not want to miss this conversation. I'm excited. Stay tuned. Family. I have actually my family, and I don't only have her here just because she's my family. This is my my cousin Tanya Carpe, and she is amazing. It's just like there's so many things that I could say about Tanya. But I mean, really, but at the core of it, the thing that you need to know the most about her is that she's sincere. She really is. And that's the title that she carries on social media, Sincerely Tan, right? Mm-hmm. So this conversation is going to be so good because I believe that she's going to be speaking directly from her heart about so many things. But I just want to pause for a moment so she can speak for herself, because she definitely can introduce herself. So please introduce yourself to the people.
Hello, everyone. As my cousin Wilma has said, my name is Tanya Cape. People are used to pronounce my last name Carpe as well. And even my dear cousin here she's using Tanya, but my family usually calls me Tanya.
Yes.
Just a little housekeeping rules. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I think what I would like for everybody to know about me is that I am purpose. And I'm excited about introducing myself that way, because now that I know I'm not searching for purpose, my very existence is purpose. That's what I brag the most about. And if I'm being honest, I'm actually in a building stage in terms of just career and where God is calling me. And I'm finally comfortable, not because it's comfortable, but I'm comfortable with just following God, because wherever I go, I'm purpose. And the same is true for everybody else in the huddle. So that's a little bit about me.
Now, I already told you all she was awesome. Who introduced themselves as I am purpose? I am purpose. Like, when I say this girl is on it, I love Tanya because she knows how to break down things and identify things and put it in terms that everybody can relate to, you know. But when she and I actually, when I was thinking about this topic, she came to mind, and it was so many different ways that we could go with it. But when we think about identity, I feel like, for me personally, I feel like our country is in identity crisis. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't know are we going back to the way things used to be? Are we moving forward? How does that look like? And because our country is in a crisis, you know, identity crisis, I feel like a lot of people are in an identity crisis. We are big in society about labels, you know, all these different labels. But for a moment, I want you to kind of like just talk about what is identity.
That can go in so many different directions. I'll start from me because I'm an expert at me. And I know that I've always felt like I had a good sense of who I was. So, you know, we're Liberian. While I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, you know, my parents are Liberian, I'm Liberian, we grew up in a Liberian household. So when we went to school, we were American, but we knew better, you know, we knew we were Liberian, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and even with that caused a little bit of misplaced identity, because it's like, well, am I Liberian, am I American? But our family, I feel like we've always had a good hold of who we are, family values and all these great things. But I feel like why I do have the confidence to introduce myself as purpose is because now I understand that my identity does not start with my family. It doesn't start with my culture. It starts with who God says that I am. So our identity is whatever influences who we are. And we take a lot of pride in a lot of things. So some people, with their sorority or, football team or even our culture being Liberian, none of those things are bad. But none of those things carry enough weight to reduce anxiety, to give us the strength that we need to do certain things. For me, and we're in the Kingdom Huddle, so we talking kingdom time.
Right.
It has to be my identity in Christ. And if Christ himself calls me purpose, then who am I to disagree with that? So I'll stop there, but we can go on and on and on about identity for sure.
That's good. That's good. You brought up some great points. And one thing that you stated was, for you, your identity, and for me as well, I can relate to it, is that our identity really was formed in Christ, in God, from learning to be in a relationship with the coach. That's where we get our identity from. But if I'm not a believer, what does that mean? Like, in a practical sense, like you talking about this, I keep talking about this coach that nobody knows, nobody can see.
Yeah.
Like, where's your coach, girl? So can you kind of like explain that to somebody who may not be on that level that we're on?
So for me, what that means is, well, first, it's a complete faith move. So it's not going to make sense because we're speaking a different language than what you're used to because you don't follow our coach. And that's cool. That doesn't mean that we can't be friends, but there are going to be some things that will be hard to understand.
Right.
The best way that I can explain it is it starts with the playbook. So I can show you the playbook. I can talk to you out the playbook, which we refer to as the Bible on this platform. And you don't have to agree, you don't have to understand, but I have to start there in order to explain it. So God took me back to Genesis chapter 1, and I've heard it preached a lot of times. I'm under awesome teaching and just other sermons, but God personally took me to Genesis chapter 1. And what I mean by that is God speaks to me through other people. And then he speaks to me through my thoughts and just, what a lot of people call intuition. To me, and in the Kingdom Huddle, we understand that that's the Spirit of God that's leading us in certain directions.
Right.
So if you go back to Genesis chapter 1, which is the first book of the playbook of the Bible, it talks about God's intention when he created humankind. So Genesis 26 through 28. In Genesis 26, he talks about his plans and what he wants to do. He let us make man in my own image, and let's give them dominion and power, and all, like he talked about his plans.
Right.
Verse 27, he executes his plans, and then verse 28, he seals the deal. So any deal that you're doing, it's not complete until it's sealed.
Right.
So if it's a contract, until your signature goes on that contract, it can easily fall through. If you're painting, if you don't put that sealant on it, it's going to crumble.
That's good.
So he seals the deal. And so when we talk about we're made in God's image, or my identity starts there, we have to start at creation. And what he did is said he created man in his image. How awesome. The creator of the universe made us to be a reflection of him. Then
let me stop you for a moment. Created in image. Okay, so that means we look just like God?
Good point.
We got all these different races and other people, like they're more superior than others. So
that's a good point. To reflect his nature, to reflect his qualities, to have access to what he has access to. We're not God, but a lot like our parents. Like, I look a lot like my daddy, but I also have some mannerisms of my mom. So I'm in their likeness or in their image, in the sense that I have access to their DNA, their genetics, but then I also have access to whatever they have access to. So, my dad can cook, he smokes meat and stuff. If I go to my daddy and say, let me get a piece of that meat, I have access to it.
Right.
It was to somebody else.
Right.
So when I say we're made in his image, we have access to some things. So as you said, the world in this country right now, we are in an identity crisis.
Yes.
Everybody's in an identity crisis. But because we belong to the coach, we have access to certain things where we shouldn't be reacting the same way as other people.
That's it. That's it. That's the point right there. Right there is your reaction. Your response to it is completely different.
It should be.
It should be.
And let me just point out, I didn't say we shouldn't feel like everybody else. Because it's not like we don't get scared, we don't get frustrated or what. We shouldn't be reacting. Our obedience should not reflect our feelings, but the image in which we were created.
Oh, that's good. Can't repeat that.
I can't repeat that. That means our obedience shouldn't reflect our feelings, but the image in which we were created.
Boom. So that's it. Listen, that was some wisdom that she just dropped on us. And I could park there for a moment, but I'm going to move on. Because one thing that I've noticed is that we've been trained to operate under titles, under positions and different things like that, and different roles. And we take that on as our identity. You know, a lot of people, I don't know if it's for men as much as it is for women. We have this unspoken pressure of, when you going to get married? Are you married yet? Are you married? When you gonna have kids? Okay, you need to have more than one though. You need to have a girl. Like I have 3 boys. I keep hearing women saying, well, who gonna take care of you when you get older? You need a girl. I'm like, God gonna take care of me. That's not even my concern. But the thing is, society has this underlying pressure. So if you're at a certain age, you're supposed to be at this certain stage in your life. And if you're not at that stage, then it's just like, what's wrong with you? You know? So we're going to go into the different titles that we cling to, being a wife, getting married, being single. Right now, you're in a state where you're unmarried. And, you know, marriage is something that you do see for yourself, but right now you're unmarried. Talk about that, being in this society, how the attitudes or the perception that people come at you with, and then talk about how, you know, for a moment there, you kind of felt like, you were weighted down by this thing and feeling like, well, what's wrong with me? And now you're at a state where you understand who you are.
Absolutely. Oh, that's good. Well, for the record, I'm 37 years old, and I'm proud to be 37 years old. We also have to get out of this thing where I can't tell other people to get out of their thing.
Ashamed of your age.
Hey,
like, God bless me.
I just said I'm creating His image. I'm definitely counting down the years that He's blessed me to be on this earth.
So, Saval, let me stop for a moment. She just said that she's 37 years old. She's like a teenager.
Well, thank you. If you say so.
I'm 42. Our family, we just have good genes, but you know, we're not ashamed of the fact of the blessings of God. He blessed us to see these years. But continue.
Well, no, and I think what you painted a lot that you painted things that are just norm in society, and I feel like culture in society is just set up to make us not feel good about ourselves.
Right?
You're too young. You're too old. You need to be younger or older. You're too fat. You're too small. Get married. You got married too young. I mean, there's always something. And so I think for my 20s, actually, even outside of just marriage, I think those years after you graduate from college, so, I graduated from high school, I was homecoming queen, honor roll, then college, Winston-Salem State, shout out to my Rams. And then, you graduate from college, and if you don't have, when I say have a plan, meaning like you're not graduating, working in your field, knowing exactly what you want to do, then it's like, I should be getting my master. My friends were getting their masters. They were building businesses. They were getting married, having children. And I was like, okay, God, well, what am I doing? And He said, be still.
Be still.
Okay. That was cute at first. But then 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I'm like, okay, God, what am I doing? And I felt like He wasn't talking fast enough. So then I tried to just go my own way. But when I hit a brick wall, I had no option except to surrender to the be still. And being still did make me feel less than. It made me feel lazy. It made me feel like, oh, I'm not where I need to be. And it was
according to man's standard and yourself,
Absolutely.
Right.
Unnecessary pressure. Because God had spoken and He was clear. Be still.
Be still.
And so what He taught me is success is not X, Y, and Z. Success is whatever He tells you to do. And what He keeps bringing up is in the Lord's Prayer where it says, "Let thy will be done
Yes.
on earth as it is in heaven." And what he keeps drilling in my head through sermons, through other people, is at any given time, if I created you to follow my plans, then if you're not looking up for the game plan to make sure you're in alignment with what my will is on earth as it is in heaven, then you're not successful. I don't care if you have 5 degrees. I don't care if you've been married to the finest man in the world and y'all have picture perfect kids and all. If you're not doing what I'm telling you to do,
it's a wrap.
It's a wrap. So what I was calling unsuccessful years, what was unsuccessful was me being disobedient and going against what God said because it didn't look like everybody else. And so the pressure from everybody else is, oh, are you going to go back to school? Are you going to get a better job? Oh, you're not married yet? Oh, you're not dating? You're not married yet? And so you're like constantly trying to fit, all these expectations until finally you realize the only person you need to impress is the one that's with you in the midnight hour. And I understand now why they say midnight hour, because anxiety seems to attack like 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
Talk about that.
Oh my
God.
God.
We live in a society right now where people are all feeling it.
Yes.
All feeling on different levels. Talk about that.
And I don't know if it's because I got older. I don't know if the, more spiritual relationship with God, that's what I mean by spiritual. Let me be clear. Jesus Christ. Right. The deeper I get in relationship with him, like when I wake up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, it feels like anxiety is lurking all around me. And what I do a couple of things. One thing I got from my sister is playing the book of Psalms and like just have it reading all night. Or I remember one night it was just real bad and like I could feel it rising. I'm like, this is not me. I don't like suffer from anxiety, but there it was.
So for you, it was like a physical thing that was happening to you that you couldn't explain. It wasn't like just mental.
No.
Physical thing that you felt.
I could physically feel anxiety rising up, like it was invading my body. So like, how they say like the spirit of fear or what, like I felt like it was a spirit of anxiety. And the only thing I was like, Jesus Christ. And when I tell you, I felt the coolness of his peace all over me, and I went back to sleep. Those are some of the benefits of knowing the coach.
Right.
Coach, like I need a timeout, coach. Right. And not to say that it happens that way every time, but he looks after his children.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wrap this up because I know we have to go on, but we were talking about, expectations. And so when I realized the coach that's there for me at midnight is the only person I need to impress, then it made it easier to take a stand. When I really started to actually learn the playbook for myself and actually see what God says about me,
right?
Then I learned. It made it easier to set boundaries.
Right.
So don't come to my face and ask me when I'm getting married.
Thank you.
Come to my face and ask me, am I in purpose? Am I in alignment? Because we subscribe to much lesser than labels. So the society and culture says, oh yeah, you're a survivor. And we're supposed to be hyped about being a survivor. But the coach, he doesn't even call us a conqueror. Like, he doesn't even say, oh yeah, you're going to conquer it. He loves it so much. He says, no, you're more than a conqueror.
Wow.
So why would I subscribe to being a survivor when the coach calls me more than a conqueror? So why would I be so worried about if I'm married, not married, if I have kids? Like, it doesn't matter. Where do you want me on the field, coach? All right, cool. Because it doesn't matter where I am on the field.
Right.
I'm more than a conqueror.
Right.
So where do I need to stand? And that's the mentality that we just have to have. So.
Yes. All right. So, the issues with titles and trying to meet society's expectation, because we have to really be careful about that, because we really can allow ourselves to not operate the way that God created us to operate. And we choose environments that God never chose us to be in. And we choose careers that God never said go after. I remember when God spoke to me and I was married and had children, and I felt like, God, there has to be more to life than this. Like, what else? I know you sent me to college, you did all these things. How am I just a wife at home wife and mom? And I remember hearing, like we said, when you have a relationship, sometimes it can be audible, sometimes you can get it from a book, from a teaching. But I remember hearing a voice saying to me that I put you in an environment where you can use the gift that I've given you. The environment that I put you in is the environment that you're going to thrive in, because that's where your gift is going to shine the most.
Whoa.
You're a nurturer. So I put you in an environment where you can nurture.
Yeah.
So when I really started understanding that everything is designed and I need to stop fighting against it. And the thing about it is, sometimes we have to stop and be critical thinkers. We have to examine the things that we believe. A lot of times we just take things at face value. Oh, you're supposed to be this. Oh, you're 25, you should be married. Oh, you're 18, you're supposed to go to college. We take things at face value. We don't fully examine them and see, well, wait a minute. Could it be that I have another route? Could it be that he knows more? So let me check in with him for a moment. But I want to go to shift to how we have different seasons in our life. And there's a lot of people that have experienced loss through coronavirus, prior to coronavirus. But coronavirus, to me, the numbers were just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All these people. And I saw on the news one day that it said 140 kids were left. 140,000 children and youth were left orphans because they lost their parent or guardian or grandma. And it just broke my heart because I feel like as a world, we're kind of in a sense of mourning. We're kind of like, what do we do now? Like, everybody's afraid of dying and just different shifting in our lives. I want you to talk about the shifting that happening in your life. The major one that happened in your life, of course, with our aunt, your mom. Just talk about that, because a lot of people are weighted down with grief.
Chad. Let me start off by saying Chad. I'm trying to figure out where to go, because grief, and I was thinking about this earlier, I feel like there's an emotion of grief, and then I feel like there is a spirit of grief. And again, we're in the Kingdom Huddle, so I know in culture, when you talk about spirits, it's very boxed in. But in the huddle, we understand that, there are two kingdoms at work here.
Right.
So when our mother passed, so she says aunt, but it's like her aunt / mama too, as well. We share parents for sure. But when my mother passed, we were actually present when she took her last breath.
That's right.
And that's that's her picture right there. Her name is Mildred Capet. I'm trying not to be long-winded on this. I'm trying to give you the short version. I don't know if there is a short version.
Right.
It completely rocked my world. I'm not going to speak for my sisters and everything. Yes, it rocked their world too. I can definitely say that, and my dad. But for me, let me speak from a personal view. It rocked my world. And even more so than losing my mother, it rocked my faith. Because I was like, wait, God, did you really just say the most important person, or let's say one half of the most important person, because your parents are your covering from me, and the circumstances that it occurred. My mother, a prayer warrior to say the least. I could go on and on and on, but just know she was a warrior of prayer. And when she was diagnosed with her sickness, she got a word from God, and he said, this is not unto death, and we're going to heal you. And so we had this faith move. And so I had no doubt. Even after she took her last breath, I remember we were in the room, and Gita was like,
we was holding hands or over her. And
and Gita was like, okay. And I'm like, no, ain't okay, because that's not how it's supposed to go. So either she about to raise from the dead, or I'm out. Flag on the play. Like, what we about to do?
Right.
And when I realized that she was not going to take another breath, it caused a crisis of belief. I can't remember what book or what thought, but there was a crisis of belief. And I had to have a conversation with God, because I'm like, this is not what was supposed to happen. You gonna have to tell me. So, confronting God. I did. I confronted him. And I didn't think he was going to answer, but what he told me was, I am God. You follow me when you can, understand what's happening. You follow me when you can't. this relationship is not based on you knowing everything and signing off on everything. Are you with this thing or not? And he didn't wait for me to answer. He said, now I'm about to show you who I really am and not who you've made me to be.
Wow.
And I think at that moment, I realized that the God that I was serving and following, I knew him, but I didn't know him. And that was in 2017. And that led to a journey of me unlearning to relearn, as we always say in our conversations. And what I started to realize is that even in grief and losing my mother, I had more faith in her healing than I did the God of her healing.
Oh my.
I had more faith in my relationship with her than I did, God. So I didn't have an accurate view of who God was. And all this plays into grief. So it's not just, I lost my covering and my earthly rock. We know that God is our rock, but my earthly rock.
Right.
It's like now everything that I knew to be normal has shifted. So what does this new normal look like? And I really don't want this new normal.
Right.
I want my mama back.
Right.
But what I can say is I felt him piecing my heart back together. Now, my heart will never be what it needs to be, or not what it needs to be, what it was before. I will forever miss my mom and wish that she was physically here. But what I've learned is God is God, and we're not here forever. No. So she did what she needed to do while she was here.
Right.
I have to work to make sure that I'm fulfilling purpose daily.
Right.
And the days where I'm not feeling it and my heart is breaking and I'm missing her, then I just surrender to him. But I think the problem with grief and just emotions, because we can talk about grief with the death, loss of a loved one, but like you said, there's been a lot of loss of jobs, relationships, even, social stuff. Like there's a lot of shifting.
Yeah.
And God cares about our feelings, but he doesn't use our feelings to determine his plans.
Yeah.
And so I think we're really good at talking about our feelings, but we think that is a qualifier, and it's not. We have to talk through our feelings with him. That's the key. Yeah. So it doesn't help for me to come to Gito and we, talk about our feelings, and then after that we never go to him or include him in the conversation, because then we start to believe that our feelings are running the show, and it's simply not.
It's not.
So in closing, I just think that grief or everything, we have to yield to God. We have to yield to his spirit. And sometimes, even if we don't know what that means, we have to definitely get with like-minded people, trusted individuals that can help to support us, pray for us, and just be there while we're trying to figure things out.
We understand that we're in strange times, and like we already stated, is that we all are trying to adjust to our new normal, to grief and different things. But what would be a good message for someone? Because I know quite a few people who recently lost a loved one, and they just don't know what to do. Like they don't know what's the first step. And there's quite a few people, like you said, who went through the same process of you feeling like, well, I don't know God. I don't know this God is going to allow my loved one to die. I don't even know if I want to be in relationship with him. Did you go through that stage of just being angry and wanting to just rebel? Because quite a few people I feel like have walked away from the church and God because of hurt. And because they're really angry with God. So how do you deal with when you're angry with God, but yet how do you come back to that, relationship and pursue a continued relationship with him?
That's awesome. And it can actually be, I want to make it, when I say general, because it can be grief, but then also sometimes there are smaller disappointments that make us feel the exact same way, but we don't feel justified because it's a smaller disappointment, right? So one thing that I realized is, as I was going through, or still walking through, just the loss of my mom, there was one time that I couldn't do anything. I was just laying down. I felt like I was just whimpering, But one thing I recognize is that feeling of depression that comes along with grief. It is normal. And depression it's that's a normal emotion. It just depends how far that emotion goes.
Right.
And I want to say that because I do understand that depression is serious, and there's a clinical depression, and I am not a medical doctor or a psychologist, but I feel like we're so scared to utter the words depression because it has this connotation around it. But one thing that I recognize is when I was walking through the fresh grief, let me say that, of my mom's passing, I recognized that feeling of depression. I was like, wait, that's been there before. And it was like this deep disappointed feeling is how I can describe it.
Yeah.
That's how I can describe it. And I can attribute it back to my 20s, or that area after college, when I'm just trying to figure out what my life looks like, or what do I want to be when I grow up, and I'm already a grown up. And so getting back to the original question that you asked, I feel like it's kind of general. So whether it's grief from a loss of a loved one, whether it's a disappointment from a failed relationship, whether it's just a disappointment of, okay, yeah, I'm walking in purpose, but I want to be married, I want to have kids, I want to do whatever. All those things are okay as long as it doesn't overtake you. And so I feel like it's okay to be honest with God.
Yes.
Because we've heard so many times, don't ask God questions. Right. God, He's sovereign. Yeah, but I don't get it. So yes, I was angry. And when I crawled into my closet, my prayer closet, I wasn't shouting again, but I was angry. And there were a lot of times I shouted, or however it came out is how it came out. Right. And it wasn't to be disrespectful, but we hear all the time in different sermons and different people, God can't bless who you pretend to be. Yes. And freedom can't occur until we expose. So when you go to the doctor, right, he can't diagnose anything. First thing they say, get undressed, because we need to see everything. Right. And I would say that's the first step, being vulnerable with God. Yes. Just you and God, or with like-minded people, or with people who you know are at a healthy point in their relationship with God that can cover you, or that you can just be honest with. Yeah. That is the first step. And then I think the second step is listening for God to respond. So when I confronted God, because I've confronted him a couple of times, but when I confronted God, I was ready to just hurry up and leave without his answer. No answer. And he was like, no, wait. I am God. By the way, I am God. Right. So I feel like we always pray for God to speak, but the prayer that I started praying is, God, not only do I need you to speak, I need to recognize your voice when I hear it. I need to recognize the answer when you send it. Yeah. And a lot of times we don't pray those prayers because we're like, well, he ain't gonna answer. Well, no, he will. We just have to be ready to receive it and recognize it. Right. And then I think the third thing is understanding it's okay to be where you are. Yes. You know, one thing that my sisters and I, have said through this process, it's not correct grammar, but be where you at. Like, be where you, if that's where you are, then cool, be where you at. And, we're laughing and we understand that is not correct grammar. If my dad's watching this, I know this is not correct grammar, Daddy. It's be where you are. Right. And don't feel guilty for being where you are. Right. So even with my sisters and I, we're at different stages in the grief process. Some days I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. They might not be feeling. Other days they might be feeling. I'm like, whatever. It's okay. This is not a group assignment. Right. Be where you are and be honest about where you are. Yeah. And then allow God to work where you are. Right. He has to literally work his fruit in you. And I felt him, when I say work his fruit, meaning his qualities of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Right. Those are things that we can't produce in ourselves. So the more we call on him and we open ourselves up to him, the more he can work those things through us. So when we're like, we're gonna feel better, God, what you doing? As we just keep walking, right, we realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm a little bit more patient than I used to be. Still miss my mama though. Yeah. Wait a minute, I feel like I'm a little bit more loving than I used to be. I still want my mama though. Right. And it's a journey. It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. Yeah. So be where you are. Trust that God has good intentions, even if you can't understand it, and even if it doesn't feel like it. Trust his character and his nature. Yes. And be patient with yourself. A lot of times we talk about forgiving other people. Yes. But I've heard, and I can't remember where I heard it, somewhere, they said maybe it takes us forgiving ourselves for either what we did, what we didn't do, or for where we are, or for feeling like we're not enough. Like, we have to face some demons. Like we have to face some of our demons.
Yeah.
That says, well, you remember what you did. Well, you remember what. So even as it relates to grief, I'm speaking specifically to grief. One thing that I feel like the enemy tries to do is I feel like he tries to constantly drop thoughts of times where I could have done more. Oh, you remember this time, and you remember this time. And when somebody passes, the first thing you want to do is like, oh man, if only I would have, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And one thing that the coach, that's why he's so clutch, because he comes swarming in. He's like, that doesn't produce any fruit. And you remember before, that moment where she blessed you and she blessed all your children. And you remember, but way before she was ever sick, y'all would hang out, y'all would do all this stuff. You remember, since you were born, y'all did everything as a family.
Right.
So even now when people are like, oh, y'all travel in packs, we do.
Right.
And that's why, because we don't know. We don't know, so we have to take advantage of every moment. And the coach reminds me, It's not about the very last moment. It's about all of the wonderful moments that you all have shared.
That's it.
And let that be encouragement for you to live every day intentionally. I trust that I will find my fine husband of purpose, will have beautiful children, and just all be purposeful together. But if I don't make it to see that, I'm okay, because every day I wake up, I'm like, okay, what's the play for today, coach?
Right.
So we have to forgive ourselves and give ourselves permission to be in alignment with what the coach calls successful and not what society calls successful.
We have covered so many things, and it's amazing how so many things can affect our identity.
Yeah.
So many different seasons in our lives can affect our identity, from loss, from feeling like you don't measure up based on society's expectation of the stage that you're in. You're supposed to be here, from your own personal thoughts and stuff.
Yeah.
Your identity really can be impacted and hit so hard, and we have been talking about the coach quite a few, because our identity finally came to play when we got into relationship with the coach. And the thing that you listed for as the fruits, being more patient, being more kind, all these different things, that's all part of your identity, but it's a process. It's a process. All of us are in different process in our identity and who God wants us to be. But at the end of the day, the key is to not lean on what you understand as your identity, not lean on what mama them told you about who you're supposed to be. Maybe marriage is not for you. Maybe you're supposed to be out of that corporate life and being a missionary. Maybe. But the thing is, we have to be able to get still with ourselves and with God and give him the opportunity to speak to us. He's always given us clues. But if it doesn't match up with what we already view as our future, we're not going to listen to it. We're not going to listen to it. But it's very important that we don't leave this earth without knowing who we're supposed to be. All of us were created to be an answer to something in this earth. That's why we were created. So your answer may look different than my answer, but we're all supposed to be a creation. We're created because God said, there's something in that area. I'm going to create Tanya for that. I'm going to create Wilma for that. I'm going to create whoever it is. It's like, I feel like my identity kicked in when I understood that I'm on assignment.
You can say that again.
That I'm on assignment. Because it's like when I realized that I was created for a greater thing than just what's attached to this world, when I realized that there's someone who created me, and because he created me, that maybe just like the manufacturer makes a car and they know the car, they know how that car is supposed to operate. They give you, when you buy a vehicle, they give you a manual. Why? Because it's the mind of the manufacturer. So that you can know exactly how to operate that, just like the manufacturer. Well, for us in the Kingdom Huddle, we believe that manual is the playbook. So in order for me to understand how I'm supposed to operate, what's my identity, how fast am I supposed to go, how slow I'm supposed to go, what all my features are, you gotta go to the book. So that's all tied into identity. and you cannot exclude the manual and think that you can just go and just, oh, I don't feel like putting gas in my car. Well, guess what, honey? It ain't gonna run if you have, a regular car. So you may not feel like doing certain things. You may not feel like this, but the thing is, it's not based on feeling. Your identity is not based on your feelings. And a lot of times we live in a society where if you feel something, that's what you are. Do it. So I love the fact that you've talked about so many different areas that can affect our identity. I want you to kind of give us a final word based on identity, whatever final word that you want to share with the people.
So I'm going to actually grab something really quickly, and I don't want to, but I wrote, anyway. So the final word on identity, there are a couple of things, and I know I was talking about in Genesis chapter 26 through 28. But when we talk about the creation and the coach, or God, let's be specific, God creating mankind, there were certain things that were built inside of that creation. So he spoke it into existence, and then he expressed his creation in man and woman. That was the second thing. And then the third thing is that he blessed his creation. And when it talks about blessing his creation, I just want to kind of be really specific, and that's the only reason why I'm looking down, because we don't understand what we have access to. So we take these labels and everything, but it's like, we don't know what comes in our all-inclusive package. And you made a very good point that we want to know our identity. We want these things, but we don't want to follow the manual. And that's fine, but it's give or take. This is not a la carte. You can't say, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that, but I don't want that.
Right.
So if we're talking about our identity, the parting words that I want to give you is what comes within our identity. First, we have to accept that we're made in God's image. So that means we reflect his nature. We reflect his likeness. We have to accept that he expressed his creation as men and women. And then the third thing is he blessed his creation to be fruitful and multiply. And I'm going to get real elementary with certain definitions, but I really want us to understand what we have access to.
Right.
So we talk about fruitful and multiply. Some of the definitions for fruitful: producing good results, beneficial, profitable, lucrative, fertile, and I put in beside fertile for God's usage.
Right.
Successful. That's all fruitful is, successful. And we're here praying, oh God, please make me successful. I already did it. It's already done. But do you know what's in the package?
Right.
Subdue. To get control of. And one definition said to get control of violent or dangerous person or group by using force. Punishment. To get control over a strong emotion. He's given us the power to do that. And then the last thing is to have dominion. That means power to rule over our territory, to govern and control. Not other people, but our environment, our resources, and to be successful.
Right.
But I think the issue is we have to accept his definition for successful. So in closing, if we're talking about identity, I think for me, what I'm always reminded of is trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path.
Yes.
Do not be wise in your own eyes.
Yes.
And those are instructions. It comes from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 8. I like the New Living Translation. But let us all understand that we are uniquely and wonderfully made. We are a masterpiece. What does that mean? It's not a mass production. I understand that there are billions of people on the earth.
Not copycats.
We're not copycats. We have our own unique identifiers as in the form of fingerprints. So I don't care how many of us there are. If God didn't have a specific plan for you,
right,
you specifically, why would he give you a unique pattern in the form of fingerprints? So what we have to ask is not what should I be doing and what did you create these fingerprints to do? Let's do that on a daily basis.
What did you create fingerprints to do?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so good. Yes, that's tweetable. Oh my God. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I got excited. Okay.
We're good.
Okay. All
We're
right.
good.
Well, listen. I hope that I know that you gain some wisdom and hopefully for those who are struggling with grief, you gain some strategies on how to move forward. And also those who may be struggling with the labels that
Yeah.
that not God, but people have placed on you and forcing you into a box that you were never intended to be in. It's okay to be who you are, whoever that is. Well, of course, you find your identity through God.
Yes.
Through God. But I want you to tell them how they can find you on social media.
Oh, for so yes, Facebook. I'm underneath my name, Tanya. Last name is Karpeh. Instagram, my handle is at sincerely_TAN. I can't really remember what my Twitter is right now, but I'm not really on there.
Right.
So,
Yeah, but thank you all so much for tuning in, and stay tuned because I'm going to have multiple conversations with different people before the end of this year, and just talking about different topics. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and share the content because this is a channel that's worth investing in. It really is.
May I say one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
So I just also want to let you know how proud and inspired I am of you. And I know we don't really get too mushy, but it's about impact. And so this programming, this platform is an answer to a problem. I live on YouTube and I'm always looking for content that God is leading me to speak in my life. Mm-hmm. And every video that you've put out has been very timely and been very impactful. So thank you for your obedience. Even, I wasn't ready for the whole setup today. But when you talk about being on assignment, you live by example and it encourages those around you to want to do better and go harder. So I appreciate you.
I know I said I was closing, but I need to say this real quick. The reason why I started all of this, and of course God spoke it, but God brought people to confirm what he spoke and to encourage. And she and her sister, Jeanette Karpeh, these two individuals were individuals that really, really inspired me to say, girl, just go do it. Do it. Mm-hmm. This is what God's calling you. This is your season. This is what you need to do. So I thank y'all for the encouragement, mm-hmm. because had it not been having the right people in your huddle, I probably would have still been sitting on the sideline saying, God, but what you want me to do? So I'm grateful. But we'll go ahead and close out on this. And we love y'all. See you